So today we're taking our AI document automation game to a next level. What we're going to do, we're going to try to extrapolate the variables from a given non-disclosure agreement template and bring them into Airtable so that we can do some cooler stuff with them in the next video. So my name is Alex. If you're new here, do subscribe to the channel now so that you don't miss any new uploads. And yeah, in our typical fashion, we're going to take a look at a quick demo right now, see how the whole system works, and then I'm going to take you through the setup of the automation so that you can basically follow along and do this yourself. There's also a link so you can download the make templates down in the description below, so feel free to check that out. But yeah, without any further ado, let's take a look. All right, so here we go. We have our PDF NDA. That looks kind of like this. As you can see, it's got a bunch of variables inside of it, which is very typical when you are working within the services industry where you're creating documents for your clients. This is what your documents typically will look like. They are templates and they have placeholders. So the idea today is that we want to be able to extract those variables in a nice organized way so that then we can take those variables, create a dynamic form so that your clients can fill it out easily, because oftentimes you are stuck in the rut of constantly trying to gather that information that is needed for those templates. And the first step is to actually organize what information you want to gather. So what we have here is a simple PDF, loads of variables as you saw, and all I have to do is just press process doc, and that will now begin processing this document. Here we go, it's starting up. We've got our text, which is just all the text that we found. And then slowly in our document variables table, you see how AI is now extracting every single variable that it finds. And it's also giving us like a field name for it and a variable description so that then we can use this in a form context. And as you can see, it's done. How cool is that? Now, let's take a look at how to set this up. All right, so first and foremost, let's take a look at what we're working here with in terms of database. So we are using Airtable, but of course you can use something like SmartSuite or Google Sheets for this kind of thing. And then what we have is our documents table. What you will really need if you're using Airtable, for instance, it's just a few fields. Let me go over that. So we have a name for the document name, then an attachment field where you can throw in the attachment. Then we want a doc record ID field, which is basically a formula field where I'm simply printing the record ID. Very straightforward. We have a checkbox type field called process doc, which triggers the process to run. Then we have a little processing field, just a long text field, nothing really crazy. And then we have the extracted text, again, a long text field where we're printing all the OCR'd text from the PDF. Very straightforward. And then we have a link to the document variables table. Let's take a look at that. So in the document variables table, we have a name, which is the variable name that we find, one of the variables basically. Then we have the link back to the document. We have a lookup of the doc record ID, that record ID field that we just created. We're just looking it up back in here. Then we have the field name, which is just a pretty version of this variable name that you'll find. And then we have the variable description, which is AI's description of this field based on the context of the whole document. So that's it. Again, there's really nothing much to it. There is a hidden field here, but yeah, that is for a different video. That's it in terms of database design. Let's take a look at how to set up the automations for this thing. All right, so if you've been following the channel all but not all, you will probably be familiar with how we trigger things and push things into make for our automation. So yeah, if you haven't, on the other hand, this is how we do it. We basically create an automation here in Airtable, and the automation always kind of looks and works the same way when we have a record condition being matched. In this case, the table is document, and when the process doc is checked, we run a script. The script is always the same. All you have to do is just basically copy paste this script, but change this particular webhook to the webhook that you will be given by make over here in this first part of the automation, which I'll explain shortly. But yeah, this is basically the webhook that you need to take. It will be different for you. I've just taken the one that Make has given me now, and I've pasted it here. Then don't forget to add the record ID input variable over here, and also don't forget to map the value of the Airtable record ID by just pressing this blue button and just selecting this Airtable record ID value. That's it. Once you're ready, once this is set up, just press finish editing, turn this on like I have, and then just click back to data. So now let's talk about the Make automation, which is actually quite simple. There is really not much to it. So first and foremost, we have our webhook, right? So then once that fetches data, then we need to get the record ID, get the record, basically get the document that triggered the whole process. And we can do this just like so, where we select the base document and map the record ID value that we get once the process triggers. From there, we need to get a file. So use a HTTP module where we get the file from the URL PDF attachment. Just open this up and choose URL. So if there was nothing there, just do it like that. That's it. From there, upload a document to DocParser. Now, if you're not familiar with the process of setting up DocParser, I've included a link down below to our previous video where you will be able to see how I'm doing this process. I just don't want to take too much time repeating myself again and again and again about how to set this up. The process is exactly the same. Once you reach this step, just follow the video down below and come back. So once you've set up a module number 4, then move on to a module number 7, where we are basically letting the user know that, hey, this document that you triggered, and we're mapping the ID from module number 2 back into documents. We're just basically saying, hey, we're starting up the process, and we're just giving it like a quick little timestamp here just to let the user know that, hey, something's happening. Then once that is done, again, we are then moving on to part 2. So the way that the system works is that we initially push the document to DocParser. DocParser parses the document, extracts all the text for us, and when that is ready, it basically shoots that payload, that extracted text, to a webhook of our choice. Again, watch that video in the description so that you know how to set this up. As soon as DocParser is finished with its job, it will push the data to this webhook, and you'll get something like this in terms of your payload from DocParser. Then we list the parsed documents, just set it up like this. Then we have like a quick little filter here with the bundle order position being 1. We just want to make sure that there's always something there in terms of payload. Then we upload the clean text to Airtable. So essentially what this means is that we are taking that OCR text and we're just pushing it, storing it in Airtable, basically over here in the extracted text section. I'm basically here saying that PDF processing is complete, and I'm mapping the fixed text from DocParser into this uploaded text field. Now, this is where the magic sauce is, basically, or part of the sauce. So over here we have process clean text, and this is just a quick call to ChatGPT's API where we give it the full text, and we're basically telling it analyze the above text that was extracted from a given document template. And then we have the structured data definition that goes something like this. The parameter name is variables in the text. The description goes something like this, where I'm basically telling it that, hey, variables typically contain these kinds of delimiters. And then my data type is an array of text. Also, I'm asking it for the type of document, and just, I'm just giving it some examples over here of the kinds of documents or the kinds of responses that I'm expecting. And also all of these 2 parameters are required, so don't forget to map that in. The response that you will get will kind of look like this, the type of document, non-disclosure agreement, variables in the text, and these are your variables. So the next step is to update the type of document from the extracted data from the payload that we received from ChatGPT, and then push the PDF processing complete update yet again to the user so that they know that, hey, something's happening. Then the next thing that we need to take care of is this other little field. Again, what we're doing here, and you can disregard this particular filter, that doesn't really need a filter. What we need to do then is we need to iterate the variables in the text over here. Then the next step is to actually check document variable list to make sure that we are not adding the same variable twice. In other words, I want to check that document variables, this variable for this document exists only once. And that's why we have this particular step where I'm searching, right? I'm searching for the name of the variable, disclosing underscore party underscore company underscore name, for instance, one of those iterated values basically. And then the doc record ID within document variables, this is our lookup, this lookup field matches the record ID. And the limit is 1. The process can only proceed if there's nothing found in that search, which is really important because if it does find something, it needs to skip it because the process later, in the next step, creates a record. We don't want it to, in other words, create more records than it needs to. In the creation part, we make sure that we map the name field with the value that we get from the iterator from over here. And we also match the record ID from module number 43, which is the upload clean text module, so that basically we map the correct variable that we've just extracted to the correct document so that it's all clean like that. And that's it in terms of module number 51, nothing else there. Now, the final bit is just enriching that variable that we've just created with a little bit more data. Again, I'm using a transform text to a structured data module, and this time what I'm doing, I'm giving it the text to parse. I'm giving it a more detailed prompt, something about the fact that, hey, we've got a variable that we've just created. I want you to give me a description of that variable. Keep it to a sentence, like make sure that it's a sentence. It sometimes deviates from that. Then, of course, we want a variable field name because, yeah, essentially we wanted to transform that variable into a more of a field name rather than just like this lowercase underscored sort of variable thing. So yeah, it does that exceptionally well. Feel free to copy this particular prompt for your own benefit. And then all I'm doing is I'm updating that record that I've just created in module 51 with the variable field name that I get from module 59. And of course, I'm also trying to capitalize the variable description that I get from module 59 inside of the variable description in my document variables. Simple as that, really, there's nothing else to it. The result is that you will get your variables nicely laid out and all linked back to the document that you've just processed. So at this point, there's so many cool things that we can do with these variables. And next week, we're going to try and create a dynamic form without actually creating the form. I'm thinking of using JotForm. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite form builder is so that we can give that one a stab or at least consider it. It will be interesting to see how we can create a form without ever really touching the form builder, which is a very, very painful process, especially if you have a very long document. I mean, granted, we just had a 2-page document, but if you have a 100-page document full of different variables, how do you get your clients to give you all the information that you require to fill that big document in? Next week, we'll take a look at that. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.